I'm chatting to Rob Douglas, the ACT Party candidate for Tuki. Kia ora, Rob, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, kia ora.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, good to see you again. Rob, you've been an ACT supporter since the 90s and have served in various positions. I think you're now the Central North Island Councillor or something for ACT. What made you decide to stand in Tuki?
Oh, look, I guess I see what the current government are doing and understand what ACT could offer.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just deeply concerned about the direction that this country is going in. And several successive governments, not just Labour, but National as well, have failed to take advantage of the resources that we have in this great region and this great country. And so I just felt that I had something to contribute.
Yeah. Well, we'll get on to those sort of policy issues and that later, but some would say that you come with quite a pedigree because your uncle is Roger Douglas, the co-founder of ACT. What influence has he had on your political beliefs and aspirations?
Yeah, sure. Actually, a lot. When I first got interested in politics, I was because I read Unfinished Business, his book, one of his books, and look, that set out a really clear path for the economy, the health system, education system, which would lift people out of a cycle of dependency on the state and into self-sufficiency. And, I felt that was a far better direction for New Zealand. And we saw some of that implemented in his time as finance minister.
Yeah.
And, it lifted the productivity of New Zealand and helped the affluence of everyday Kiwis. Sadly, over several decades, that's been gradually eroded away, and so we need to have another big look at the direction that this country is headed in.
Yeah. Have you spoken to him recently, and what does he say about you standing?
Look, I've spoken to him about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Look, he's very supportive. And I think he was pleased.
Oh, good. Because he's actually come out now and said that he's actually distanced himself a bit from, he's not going to vote for ACT because he says they've lost the plot a bit and they've become a party for the wealthy. What do you say about that?
Look, I think what he said was he was an undecided voter.
Okay.
I do believe that he will vote ACT, ultimately. But look, I totally reject that ACT is a party for the wealthy.
Yeah.
I look at the policies that we have, and that's not what I see. That is certainly not why I'm standing for ACT.
Yeah.
I actually have a great-grandfather that was a socialist in the Labour Party.
Wow.
And a member of Parliament for about 25 years. And he was a socialist because he believed that was the best way to help everyday Kiwis. My grandfather was also a member of Parliament with Labour, and he was a unionist. He believed in standing up for the workers. And Roger went into Parliament initially quite socialist himself, but over the time seemed to pick up an understanding that actually the policies that both Labour and National were implementing were trapping people in a cycle of dependency on the state to their detriment. And I too believe that the best way forward is to help people help themselves, give them the tools through education and a strong economy, and that's why I'm standing for ACT.
Okay. Now, your background, you grew up on a farm near Havelock North. Tell us a bit more about that, about your background.
Yeah, sure. Grew up on a farm, learnt the value of hard work. through docking. I had a little poultry business. I'd sell just about anything I possibly could at the farm gate, and really did learn the value of hard work. I put myself through university on the back of a hay carting truck, it was a great upbringing. I caught the school bus into the public schooling system in Havelock, and it was great. I guess my favourite thing at school was rugby rather than education, but I guess that's the way it goes.
Because you now got your own business, you're a home valuer, if I'm correct. So you sort of working in that sort of small business sort of sector kind of thing.
Correct. I am a registered valuer, small business owner, we value commercial and residential property right across Hawke's Bay, from Gisborne all the way down to Dannyvert pretty much, and we'll do sort of special use properties around wider areas of the North Island. I understand a lot of the problems that we're seeing from a housing perspective, by having been hands-on and seeing the quality and the cost that this is having on everyday society. Housing is New Zealand's single largest cost of most households, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Now, you said before that you stand in to get the party vote, but if you don't want people to vote for you and just for the party, who should they vote for in the election, in the electorate vote?
Oh, look, that's entirely up to individuals, but the way to get myself and a strong vote for ACT into Parliament is a party vote for ACT.
Because you're number 16 on the ACT party list, so the way polling is going at the moment, there's a reasonable chance that you could get in.
Absolutely, I'm very confident. Yeah. The ACT party is currently the fastest growing political movement in the country. Yeah. We are on a trajectory that looks very, very positive. 3 of the last 4 polls have all said we'll get at least 16 MPs into Parliament. And with the trajectory we're going at, I think it'll be 20 or 20 plus.
Wow. Yeah, because that sort of changes the whole thing, because it becomes more of a sort of co-governance kind of thing with National rather than just being a junior party.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we're standing. We want to see real change.
Yeah.
And, it's about delivering that. And, we will hold National to account. Yeah. We will make sure that they actually do what they say they're going to do and change Labour policies, because in the past they haven't done that.
Yeah.
And we'll do that, and we'll also point them in the direction of some other things that need to be done to improve New Zealand.
Yeah. We'll get on to more of that, but big change for you if you do get in. I mean, suddenly you've got a young family and that, and down to Wellington for most of the week and that. Have you sort of factored all that in and ready for that?
Yeah, look, that was the toughest decision when deciding to stand. I've got a wife of 20 years, Mel, and 3 beautiful daughters aged between 8 and 15. Yeah. And being away from them will be the toughest part. Yeah. But look, I'm really looking forward to the challenge, and I have their support.
Yeah. Now, I understand that private polling has ACT in Tukituki at between 20 and 21%, which is actually quite massive compared to whatever has been in the past. If this translates to electorate votes, that could have an impact probably on the national candidate, Catherine Wedd, which could see Labour get an MP again. What do you say about all that?
Well, look, if you look at last election's polling, we actually had 70% of the people that voted Party Vote Act actually gave their vote to National for the electorate candidate. I don't think there's a deep concern about that, but look, the message I've got is you just need to give your party vote to ACT.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see if if that actually happens. When you're down there, what would you see your main role as being if you get there in Parliament?
Oh, look, I would like to be involved in housing. We have a significant housing problem in New Zealand, and I understand it. I'm involved with a development at the moment where it's taken 18 months to get sign off on the paperwork, and we've got 3 months of physical works for the subdivision. It's a simple subdivision. It shouldn't take 18 months to do
So
the
this
paperwork.
is council bureaucracy, and that's
Absolutely, it's excessive. We can tackle that. Just if we were able to just reduce 12 months off that, it would be tens of thousands of dollars in just holding costs, saved off each of those section costs. You know, that's real savings for everyday Kiwis. It's getting a reasonable supply of housing onto the market that is the problem at the moment, and it's holding values high. As a property valuer, I could see how problematic that was. We had values significantly above the cost of the inputs. So if you added the cost of land and the cost of improvements to the together, they were significantly lower than the cost of a newly built home. And that is a sign that something is a little bit broken in the supply chain. So we need to free that up. The biggest impediment to that was the supply of land, not the supply of labour, and it certainly wasn't price gouging. I mean, there are areas where we can absolutely improve on that. But you know, ultimately, we need to get the settings right in the RMA to tackle some of those problems.
Okay, all right, that's quite interesting. So what is your campaign strategy for the election? Are you door knocking, public meetings? What are you doing? And hoardings, obviously.
Hoardings are a big driver for us because we're going for a party vote. We're not really doing door knocking. We think there's more efficient ways of going about it than that. It's just engaging wherever we can. We want to get out there and talk to everyday Hawke's Bay residents and say, hey, look, what's going on in your life? And how can we improve that? And you know, we're getting cut through, as you say. The polls apparently saying that Hawke's Bay's about 20% towards ACT. That doesn't surprise me, because I'm hearing out there a lot of people very pleased with the policies and the direction that ACT is putting up. We've got such high calibre in the farming sector with Mark Cameron and Andrew Hoggard, people like David Seymour. He talks common sense. He thinks very, very carefully about public policy, and he's quite prepared to take a position which may not be the most popular if it's the right decision.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because you could also get another seat the way Brooke Van Velden's going as well, so it is interesting. Now, just getting back to your hoardings, some would say that ACT has sort of thumbed its nose a bit at council bylaws and that, because ACT signs are in Hastings all over the place, and you know, it's unclear because the council doesn't seem to be enforcing the rules. Have you broken the rules, or what is your position on that?
Look, I don't think our signs break the rules at the moment. We have learnt some lessons about the rules over the course of the last few months. But look, a lot of what our signs have been doing is messaging about telling people where things are going wrong. This is, you know, things like tackling the cost of living and crime. You know, these are important issues that people need to understand that the ACT Party are actually talking about, we know about, and we want to fix. And so, you know, that was the early part of our campaign, the We Hear Ya billboards. Then a lot of it has been meeting billboards, which intended to get people along to meetings with David Seymour
Because he's
or
coming
Brooke
back
Van
down
Velden.
here soon, eh?
Yeah, David Seymour is here on the 10th of August, so if any of your listeners want to come along, we'd love to see you there. We've booked the Municipal Theatre in Napier, so it takes well over 600 people to fill that, so we'd love to get everyone along that possibly can. So he's at 7 o'clock in the Municipal Theatre in Napier and 4:30 at Lindisfarne College.
We're giving you a free plug there, so we'll let you get away with that one. So elections cost a lot. Who's funding your campaign?
Look, I haven't got any cut through on that. I just don't know. Essentially, we run a centralised fund for the whole party, so that's all handled out of our head office.
And that's from donations, big and small, coming in. And I suppose because you're not running a sort of electorate campaign, personally, you don't need extra signage on that. Yeah,
Yeah, correct.
yeah. So there are no signs of you up and up.
No, my daughter would kill me.
Yeah. Now, what are the main issues you're standing on? I mean, apart from what you've mentioned and that, but what are some of the other issues?
The main issues the party is standing on is the cost of living, crime, and co-governance.
Yeah. And in terms of crime, are you picking up that that's quite an issue in Hawke's Bay?
Look, absolutely. I mean, it has been for a long time. It was exacerbated by the Cyclone Gabriel events.
Yeah.
But look, crime is up in every town and every year in this country. And the Labor government are putting the criminals ahead of victims. We need to flip that around. If you just look at some of the statistics, acts intended to cause injury are up 42%. Acts of serious violence are up 121%. Ram raids are up 65% in the last year alone. Gang numbers are up 84%, growing at a far faster rate than the police. And you know, 90% of prisoners last year received no rehabilitation whatsoever.
Yeah. Where are you getting that information from?
Oh, these are national statistics.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got to do something about it. It is broken at the moment. So the ACT Party would bring back 3 strikes. We'd bring in 3 strikes for burglary. We would tilt the balance to be in favour of the victim rather than the criminal. We would make sure that reparations were paid directly by the government rather than adding further insult to injury by drip feeding those payments by the offender. It's just not fair. We need to take back our streets. We need to know that our kids are safe walking to the dairy or going to school. You know, we need to know that we're safe in our shops and in our homes. This is our right, and we need to take it back.
Yeah, yeah. Now, talking about the Cyclone Gabriel, were you personally affected at all by it?
No, I was very lucky. Yeah.
But obviously, it's had an impact, and you would have seen it, especially going around and valuing houses and and properties and that. What do you think of the government response and the council response to it? Council's response to it?
Well, look, I mean, the council were going to be driven by the government.
Yeah.
So ultimately, a lot of that, their hands are tied in many respects. I am a little bit concerned at the current direction. I worry that we are getting tied up in a lot of bloated planning committees, you know, rather than focusing on actually getting stuff done. Yeah. And so that is the direction I think we need to look at moving after the election. You know, I mean, I don't know if you've read the Hawke's Bay Cyclone Gabriel recovery plan, but it's 87 pages could have been written in about 2 or 3. It repeats the same stuff over and over and over again. It is a plan about making more plans and about getting funding for more plans. It is not a plan for recovery. That is not how we recovered from the 1931 earthquake. We just got on and got things done. David Seymour was here on about the third or fourth day after the cyclone on the ground, identifying what the problems were, talking to locals, and he took that back to Wellington, came back on the 3rd of March, just days after the event, with a full Cyclone Gabriel recovery plan. We are still the only party outside of government that has an actual recovery plan, and it sets out a number of processes that need, or policies that need to be implemented in order to free up fixing Hawke's Bay, because Hawke's Bay is an important part of the New Zealand economy. We recognise that. It talks about getting tough on low-life criminals who further victimise cyclone victims. And, we would make an aggregating factor anyone that commits a crime in an emergency situation. It talks about tackling government spending so we can actually refocus that spending on where it really is valuable. Areas like the Cyclone Gabriel recovery,
Yeah. And, there have been some communities that are a bit disgruntled. I mean, obviously, homeowners who've been affected, they feel that there hasn't been enough communication, and then you've got the growers who I think were a little bit irritated, if I can say, with their package, because it mainly seemed to be facilitating loans for them rather than giving them money. What do you say about those issues?
Well, look, primarily I think we need to make sure that the government is getting out of the way of the private sector rebuilding. I mean, I look at the 1931 earthquake, and after that, I value a property in Napier down the main street or in Hastings, and amazingly, they were all built in 1931, 32, 33, 34, 35, It's staggering how quick they rebuilt after that. And they did that because the government got out of the way. It cleared all the bureaucracy. I mean, these poor horticulturalists have been struggling to get the government to sign off on burning these, waste piles. It's just insane. Just get out of their way. Let them do business. These guys know how to rebuild. They've done it before. They did it in 1931, business sector, and just got on and did it. They can do it again. We've just got to make sure that we clear out that red tape, remove RMA barriers, and let the private sector get on with it.
Now, one other policy that's come out is about roads, and you're saying that roads shouldn't be funded by taxpayers, but private roads, basically tolls and that. That's going to be a bit controversial because people are still going to be obviously paying for it,
Well, I mean, we've got a bunch of existing roads at the moment, which, would still largely be in play. But currently people choose to go on the toll roads because they're way more efficient. The alternative is that we wait 30 years and may or may not ever get the road at the at the moment. I was driving across the Napier Taupo Road yesterday, and there's potholes everywhere. The place is an absolute wreck. We can't just continue the way we're going, and at the end of the day, the funding has to come from somewhere. It's either going to come from your tax or it's going to come from tolls.
Yeah. Now, some may say that the country has, because there has been upset about the government and things they've done and over COVID and everything that the country has moved a bit to the right. What would you say about that? To the right, sort of politically. So, as a result of sort of Labour government's policies and that.
Look, I think there has been a pretty strong reaction to Labor's policies. People I speak to are not happy. There is a lot of concern about the direction that we are going in. So yeah, look, I'm hearing that.
Now, it's a fine line with ACT, with the whole anti-vax and that sort of thing, and this conspiracy theories. How do you sort of actively oppose the government on things but don't go down a rabbit hole yourself?
Oh, look, I'll leave that to David primarily.
Yeah.
Safest bet.
Yeah.
No, look, there's lots of theories out there that people espousing. I just try not to engage too much in that.
Yeah. So what will happen if you don't get into Parliament this time? Do you see yourself in any other role politically at all?
Oh, look, I'll go back to doing the current job I'm currently doing, both with ACT and personally. But look, I want to stay engaged in politics if I don't, but I do think I will get to be elected. The ACT Party is certainly something that I care very, very deeply about because I know that their policies would make a huge difference to everyday Kiwis.
Yeah. Now, you standing a candidate in Napier as well, Paul Mlewski. Are you working with him at all in terms of to sort of have a united and coordinated effort?
Look, 100%. We're going for the party vote. Electorate boundaries are largely irrelevant to us.
Yeah.
So we are going for a party vote wherever we can find it. I'm doing stuff in Central Hawke's Bay as well.
Yeah, because in your role as central councillor, I suppose you have sort of oversight over quite a few campaigns.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm representing ACT at a Rotary meeting in the Wairarapa electorate in the Central Hawke's Bay. So.
Yeah, okay. Now, just last question. Why do you think the people of Tukituki should vote for ACT and potentially for you as well?
Oh, look, as I say, we need to get tough on crime. We need to sort out the cost of living crisis. And, co-governance is something that so many people we speak to are deeply concerned about. So we need to address that. And if you believe that we are going down the wrong direction and dividing New Zealand into two groups rather than treating everyone equally, then you need to be thinking seriously about party voting for ACT.
But I'll add a question. What do you say about this roadshow that's going around, this sort of anti-treaty and anti-co-governance? Do you support those moves? Oh,
look, I don't know much about it. You're talking about Julian Batchelor, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've never been to anything that he's got on. I actually don't know what he's really standing for. What I do know is that the ACT Party are standing up for an equal rights for every person. We've seen the cost of dividing us by race in the provision of public services, where in the health system, in Auckland, for example, if you're of one ethnicity, you might get prioritised over someone with more urgent medical needs of a different ethnicity. We think that is wrong. We believe that everybody, regardless of who their ancestors are, should be treated equally, and the provision of public services should be to those who have the greatest need.
Some may say that, and it has been said, that by taking the stance, you're actually fanning racial hatred and divide. What do you say to that?
Oh, look, that is a real problem because we're dealing with something that is affecting our democracy, and if it's being stifled by not having a proper debate about it, that is a real worry. People are very concerned about it, but are not willing to stand up and talk about it.
Yeah.
And we can't change our constitution without discussing it.
Yeah. Okay, Rob Douglas, thank you so much for your time and all the best for the elections.
Thanks, Andrew.